Find more questions and study at your own pace on our website. The link will be in the description. Let's get started. Question 1. You have an Azure subscription that contains several Azure SQL databases and an Azure Sentinel workspace. You need to create a saved query in the workspace to find events reported by Azure Defender for SQL. What should you do? Option A. From Azure CLI, run the Get As Operational Insights Workspace CMDLet. Option B. From the Azure SQL Database Query Editor, create a Transact SQL query. Option C. From the Azure Sentinel Workspace, create a Kusto Query Language query. Option D. From Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, create a Transact SQL query. To find events reported by Azure Defender for SQL in Azure Sentinel, you should create a Kusto Query Language query from the Azure Sentinel Workspace. Azure Sentinel uses Kusto Query Language for querying data, which is specifically designed for large datasets and log data, making it the appropriate choice for this task. Question 2. You have an Azure web app named Web App 1. You upload a certificate to Web App 1. You need to make the certificate accessible to the app code of Web App 1. What should you do? Option A. Add a user-assigned managed identity to Web App 1. Option B. Add an app setting to the Web App 1 configuration. Option C. Enable system-assigned managed identity for Web App 1. Option D. Configure the TLS/SSL binding for Web App 1. To make the certificate accessible to your app code in an Azure web app, you should add an app setting to the web app's configuration. Specifically, you need to use the app setting Website Load Certificates with the certificate thumbprints. This setting allows your app to load and access the certificate during its runtime. Question 3. Your company has an Azure subscription named Sub1. You plan to create several security alerts by using Azure Monitor. You need to prepare Sub1 for the alerts. What should you create first? Option A. An Azure Automation account. Option B. An Azure Event Hub. Option C. An Azure Log Analytics Workspace. Option D. An Azure Storage account. To create security alerts using Azure Monitor, you need a central location where the monitoring data can be collected, analyzed, and queried. An Azure Log Analytics Workspace is the service that provides these capabilities. It collects and organizes the data from various Azure resources, and Azure Monitor uses this data to generate alerts. Therefore, setting up an Azure Log Analytics Workspace is the necessary first step to prepare for creating security alerts. Question 4. You have an Azure subscription that contains virtual machines. You enable just-in-time VM access to all the virtual machines. You need to connect to a virtual machine by using Remote Desktop. What should you do first? Option A. From Azure Directory Privileged Identity Management, activate the Security Administrator user role. Option B. From Azure Active Directory Privileged Identity Management, activate the owner role for the virtual machine. Option C. From the Azure portal, select the virtual machine, select Connect, and then select Request Access. Option D. From the Azure portal, select the virtual machine and add the Network Watcher Agent virtual machine extension. When just-in-time VM access is enabled, the first step to connect to a virtual machine using Remote Desktop is to request access from the Azure portal. This involves selecting the virtual machine, clicking on Connect, and then selecting Request Access. This process temporarily opens the required network ports for a limited time, allowing the user to connect to the VM securely. Question 5. You are troubleshooting a security issue for an Azure storage account. You enable Azure Storage Analytics logs and archive it to a storage account. What should you use to retrieve the diagnostics logs? Option A. Azure Cosmos DB Explorer. Option B. Azure Monitor. Option C. AZ-Copy. Option D. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. AZ-Copy is a command-line utility specifically designed for copying data to and from Microsoft Azure storage accounts. It is an effective tool for retrieving diagnostic logs stored in Azure storage. By using AZ-Copy, you can download the required blobs containing the log data to your local machine and analyze them accordingly. None of the other options are specifically tailored for retrieving Azure Storage Analytics logs. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to check out our website where you can find more questions for this exam. The link will be in the description. Thank you for watching and good luck on your exams.